Good day, boys and girls. This is our first video lesson. I hope you're all still fit and healthy at home and not giving your parents too much trouble. What I need you to quickly note is where I refer to LB in this PowerPoint presentation, it refers to your textbook. The videotaped lessons I'm only going to use to focus on lessons that are important for future examinations and work that I really consider to be important. So all the assignments that I've given you, I won't be covering them in these video lessons. We will work together when we are back in class and fully operational again on all those assignments. We'll go through them, we'll mark them together, and if you have any questions or concerns, we'll address it then when we are back in the classroom. And then formal assessments, I'll give you some guidance now during this lesson on formal assessments, but I will obviously mark all of those once we are back at school. So please, I've asked you to do all the work on exam pads. I need you to bring all those papers with. Please keep them safe and make sure that you hand them in as soon as we are fully operational and back at school again. So the first one is activity 5 on page 87. This was task 2 of the first batch of homework assignments I gave you. This is about summary writing. Remember, I told you in this year we're going to focus a bit more on summary writing. What you need to remember about summary writing is that you have to highlight the important points or the main ideas. So from the excerpt or the extract that you are given, you only take, once you've done your first read of the portion, you only take the main ideas or the key points from the paragraphs, and you jot them down. And then when you are given instructions to do summaries, follow those instructions very carefully. They will often tell you exactly how to do the summary, what they want you, in which format they want you to write it, whether you need to write it in paragraph format or in point format. You have to number your sentences. Remember also, you always have to write in full sentences. All of those instructions are very carefully. So for summary writing, they will often differ, so make sure that you follow the instructions that they give you, that you are given for each summary very carefully. And also remember to stick to the prescribed word count. You can't go beyond the word count, so make sure that when you do your summary writing, that you stick to the word count that they've given you as well. The next one was task 7. It's activity 2 on page 97. This was a language activity. It's a complex sentence. It's basically about main clauses and subordinate clauses. A combination of these and one conjunction form your complex sentence. Now, I've highlighted everything, and please, again, do not be concerned. We'll handle all these things in class again if things are too difficult for you at the moment, but try and go through this. I'll also be sending the PowerPoint presentation in PDF format, and then you can look at this. You can maybe print it or just download it for you at home, and then have a look at the information that I've given you on this slide presentation. So each clause, whether it's the main clause or the subordinate clause, each clause has a verb. The main clause is similar to a simple sentence, just a normal simple sentence, boys and girls, that has a subject, a verb, and an object. And then your subordinate clause tells you more about your main clause. Now, I've given you 2 examples. The first one is, the dog ran into the street. There you can see that is a simple sentence. The dog ran into the street. You can leave the sentence as it is there, and it will make sense on its own. Ran is your verb, the dog is your subject, and into the street is your object. Because the gate was open, because is your conjunction in this instance. The gate was open is your subordinate clause, because it gives us more information as to why the dog ran into the street. Sentence or example number 2, although she did not take advice from her parents, they paid for their daughter's studies. So in this, remember, the main clause does not always start. That's not, the complex sentence does not necessarily start with your main clause. Sometimes it can start with your subordinate clause. So just make sure you look out for that. Okay. As I said, we will go through this in more detail when we are back in classroom, and any questions you have, we will then address those. The next one was task 10. This was a poetry activity, activity 12 on page 106. We've looked at imagery before. Imagery, remember, is used by poets to get their message across. They use imagery to explain to us what they are trying to tell us in the poem. So there are 3 types of imagery. We always only used to deal with comparisons and personification. Now there's a third. It's called onomatopoeia. You've heard this before as well. It's a very strange word. And all that it means is it is a recreating of the sound of the word. So the word swoosh or rustle or hiss, even though it is a word, and sometimes it is used as a verb, it mimics the sound of the actual word. Okay, personification, you know by now, that is given a human quality to an object or an animal. And then your 2 different comparisons, by now you should know them very well, your simile and your metaphor. I've made a note here that you need to refer to the glossary on pages 299 to 302 for more information on these terms. Ensure you know the definitions, boys and girls, before you attempt to do this formal assessment for me. In the glossary, they give you a brief definition or description of those terms. So if you're not sure, refer to the glossary, and also maybe look in your textbook where you can find examples of the imagery. And then task 12. This we've done before briefly, I think in grade 8 as well. We've looked at notices, agendas and minutes of meetings. This is a bit involved. It's activities 9 and 10 that you had to do for me on pages 115 and 116. So first I wanted you to look at the theory on pages 112, 113, 115 and 116. They give you bits of theory all over. They give you examples as well of notices, agendas and minutes of meetings. The pattern that a meeting you typically follow is you first receive notice of a meeting that will be taking place. Then there is an agenda drawn up, typically by the secretary of the meeting, containing the discussion points, in other words, what will be discussed during the meeting or at the meeting. And lastly, you find the minutes of the meeting. These are the detailed descriptions or notes of everything that was discussed and decided upon during the meeting. Remember, boys and girls, meetings, you do not greet people at meetings and say, hi, how's it, hello, gaan het nou? It's very formal and very structured. So even in writing the notice, the agenda and the minutes, you use very formal language when writing up these 3 elements of your meetings. First one, I've taken these examples from your textbook. On page 115 is an example of a notice of a meeting. So all that it tells you is a notice of a meeting is written in the future tense. Remember, because they are telling you of a meeting that is going to take place still in the future. So here they've said here, a meeting of the school governing body of Green High School will be held, can you see there's your future tense, on Friday the 13th of November at such and such a time in the school hall. So they give you the date, they give you the time and the place where the meeting takes place. They also give you a street address in this instance. You will know that obviously if you have to physically attend a meeting, you need to know where it is, what time it is, and on which day it will take place. And can you see, no, hello, how's it? A meeting of, can you see the language is very, very formal and it's very structured. And then here they also typically ask you to reply whether you will be attending or not. It says there, please reply to the secretary at this telephone number by a certain date. So people are often asked to reply so that the secretary knows who will be attending and who should be sending apologies. It's also very important to note, if you cannot attend a meeting to which you have been invited, it is only good manners and acceptable practice to reply and to make your excuses to say that unfortunately I won't be able to attend the meeting. Okay, so that's also very important. The second thing is your agenda. The agenda consists of 3 sections, but they are all captured in one document. First of all, you have the title. So that's the title of you need to know what the meeting is for, because some people attend lots and lots of different meetings in their capacity that they have. For instance, our principal at school, he might have to attend a meeting as the principal of the school. He might have to attend a meeting as part of his church that he's attending, or maybe as part of a sports club. So can you see, in different capacities he has different roles? That's what happened to a lot of people, and therefore you need to have a title for your meeting so that the person who receives the notice knows, okay, this is what the meeting is about. In this instance, it's Green High Echo Club Clean Air Committee meeting, and that's the agenda, and then it gives you the date of your meeting, and then they've got the apology, so those are the people who won't be attending. Also, they have, as point 2, or the second section, minutes of the previous meeting. That is, if there was a previous meeting, sometimes it could possibly be the very first meeting of something that you've been invited to, then obviously that won't be applicable. And then your new discussion points. And remember, we've said very formal, very structured, the language as well. And please note, boys and girls, the use of capital letters in the correct places, the use of the correct spelling. You always typically start an agenda with a welcome note. This would typically be from the chairperson, where they welcome everyone who is attending. Then your apologies, where they note who the people are who won't be or wasn't able to attend the meeting. And then minutes of previous meetings where applicable. Otherwise, they start with matters, the new discussion points. So here they've got matters arising from the minutes. This is only applicable if there was prior meetings or if there were prior meetings held. And then now they've got as item 5 posters. And remember, you have sub points as well. 5.1 finishing the posters, 5.2 transporting the posters. These are subheadings for your main headings. And then typically you will end with a general portion. You'll see in this one it's item 7 on the agenda, a general portion where matters that they've not included in the other discussion points can be raised. And then there will be a scheduling for a next meeting, and maybe sometimes there's an ending or a greeting to close the meeting. Okay, so please look at this, study this before you attempt to do the formal assessment. And then the last bit is your minutes. This is more detail. This is where you get your detail of everything that was discussed and everything that was decided upon. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail. You'll just see that at the top again there's a title which tells you this is the minutes of the meeting of the Echo Club of Green High School that was held on the 16th of October at such and such a time. Where the notice is in the future tense, the minutes typically are in the past tense, because now the meeting has been held and you are reporting as the secretary of everything that was discussed and that was decided. Typically use the past tense, and you'll also often use the passive voice. If you look at point 3 there, it tells you the minutes of the September meeting were adopted. In other words, they were proposed and seconded. This is when they ask you, do you agree with the minutes? Are they correct? Are they factually acceptable to everyone at the meeting, etc.? And remember your points on your agenda for a specific meeting, and the minute points on the minutes that you write, those headings and subheadings must correspond. You can't have 15 points on the agenda and when you've done the minutes for that exact same meeting only have 5 points. That's incorrect. So make sure that when you do these exercises for me, that your agenda and your minutes, the points, the discussion points on the agenda and on the minutes correspond, that they are exactly the same. If point 1 on your agenda is the welcome note, then point 1 on your minutes must be the welcome note. You can't have anything else in its place if it's the exact same meeting. So please just be on the lookout for that. Make sure your minutes is written then in the past tense as well. And that's basically it. So I hope by now you've looked at those exercises and that you've done your work, boys and girls. It's very important that when we all get back to class, that we are all on the same page with regards to this work, that we don't need to catch up unnecessarily, because we won't have a lot of time. Yeah, so until next time, please stay healthy. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that my cell number is available to the parents to ask me via WhatsApp, or if they want to send me emails. Thank you and goodbye.